Released in 1981, the film New York Prison Break plunges viewers into a bleak, near-future reality. By 1997, Manhattan Island has been entirely walled off, becoming a maximum security penitentiary for all of the country's convicted criminals. Its once vibrant streets are now scorched wastelands, dotted with crumbling buildings and ruled by vicious, desperate gangs. A stark transformation of the global symbol of liberty into a hellish urban cage. Against this dystopian backdrop, disaster strikes. Air Force One, carrying the President of the United States, is deliberately downed by militants right in the heart of the prison city. This catastrophic event throws the nation into unprecedented crisis. With all conventional methods exhausted, the government is forced to turn to its last, most desperate option, a notorious anti-establishment former soldier and criminal named the Serpent. Given a perilous ultimatum, he has 24 hours to infiltrate the hostile city, locate the head of state, and ensure his safe extraction. The Serpent must navigate a maze of violence, deceit, and death that lurks around every corner. But beyond the gripping on-screen narrative, the production of New York Prison Break is rife with its own astonishing behind-the-scenes tales. From a critical death scene filmed on a shoestring budget in the director's cramped garage to an action sequence where a professional wrestler nearly suffered a fatal injury from a real spiked weapon. The realism of the shoot even caused a local sensation when media outlets, genuinely believing a catastrophic plane crash had occurred, sent the city into a state of panic. And that's just the start. Prepare to delve into the fascinating, untold stories and 20 hidden facts that lie behind this cult classic. Number 1. The dystopian city model was reused. The film's horrifying vision of a locked-down, ruined Manhattan, a giant prison teeming with life amidst derelict infrastructure, was a marvel of low-budget filmmaking. Director John Carpenter and his team couldn't afford a real cityscape, so they constructed a large-scale, miniature New York model. To achieve the gloomy, ghostly look, the model's concrete structures and miniature avenues were painted in blacks and grays, using reflective tape to enhance the eerie, desolate feel on camera. Audiences believed they were seeing a vast, ruined metropolis, but it was just a tiny, painstakingly crafted model world. Here's the astonishing part. Once principal photography wrapped, the valuable miniature city wasn't scrapped. It was acquired for the production of Ridley Scott's Blade Runner, 1982. A new coat of neon paint, a splash of dazzling lights, and a fresh cyberpunk aesthetic were added, transforming the model of ruined New York into the bustling, futuristic Los Angeles of 2019. Two completely distinct, iconic dystopian worlds, all sprung from the very same physical foundation, cementing its place in cinematic history. Number 2. A future Hollywood titan quietly worked on the visual effects. In 1981, before becoming the globally recognized name behind blockbusters, James Cameron was a relatively unknown artist working for a small special effects house specializing in economical productions. Carpenter hired him to contribute to New York Prison Break's visual effects team. Cameron's primary role involved matte painting, creating massive, hyper-realistic background canvases. These paintings were essential for simulating the illusion of a vast, abandoned New York, complete with decaying skyscrapers, faint, flickering lights, and a pervasive sense of dread. No one on set at the time suspected that the meticulous artist, carefully rendering every shattered window and wall, would go on to direct revolutionary films like The Terminator, Aliens, Titanic, and Avatar. The dimly lit workshops of New York Prison Break served as an early, silent proving ground where Cameron refined his eye for detail, technique, and relentless ambition, laying the essential groundwork for his explosive career rise in the decade that followed. Filmmaking. Number 3. A crucial finale scene was filmed in the director's garage. In the original screenplay, Maggie, the fierce character who teams up with the Serpent, meets a heroic end. However, after the main production concluded, John Carpenter realized there was a critical narrative gap. The scene depicting the aftermath of Maggie's death was missing, leaving an emotional beat unresolved. With the film's budget exhausted and no time to rebuild the elaborate set of the Silver Cup Bridge, Carpenter found a startlingly pragmatic solution. He took a minimal crew to his personal home garage. Adrienne Barbeau, the actress who played Maggie and was married to Carpenter at the time, simply lay still on the cold concrete floor, posing as a corpse. A handheld camera was used, and only basic makeshift lighting was employed to capture the somber mood. Thus, the poignant final shot, sealing Maggie's tragic fate and satisfying the story's necessary conclusion, was born in an ordinary, cramped suburban space, a testament to Carpenter's resourceful filmmaking. Number 4. The president was given a secret British backstory. Donald Pleasance, already a famous face from Carpenter's Halloween, Dr. Loomis, took on the role of the captured U.S. president. However, he didn't stop at the script. To justify his distinctly booming British accent for an American leader, Pleasance concocted an elaborate, never-revealed private history for the character. He imagined that after a period of decline, the United States had subtly fallen back under a form of neo-colonial British influence, with Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher pulling the strings. In this fabricated lore, his character was a British gentleman installed as a puppet president. This quirky, hidden backstory created an odd depth and subtle political commentary that, while never explicitly mentioned in the film, accounted for his unique delivery and made his portrayal of the head of state a memorable eccentricity in an already peculiar film. Number 5. A near-fatal stunt with a real spiked bat. In one of the film's most intense confrontations, the serpent battles a massive man, an arena champion, amidst a crowd of cheering inmates. Carpenter chose a genuine professional wrestler, Ox Baker, famous for his imposing physique and menacing ring presence, to play the giant. The scene's climax requires Kurt Russell, the serpent, to strike Baker directly with a baseball bat. The chilling detail? The bat used in the close-up shots was not a prop. The spikes were real, and Baker was protected only by a thin piece of wood concealed beneath his shirt. A slight miscalculation in the swing or the wrestler's timing could have resulted in a spike piercing his body, potentially ending his career or his life. The resulting fight scene is breathtakingly brutal and realistic, a terrifying gamble for the sake of cinematic impact. Number 6. The fake plane crash that caused mass panic. Imagine waking up to a city gripped by terrifying news. A massive airplane has just crashed in the heart of downtown. That's exactly what happened in St. Louis during filming. Residents poured into the streets, sirens blared, and local media went into a frenzy, reporting the disaster as fact. In reality, it was a hyper-realistic stage scene by the New York prison break crew. They had bought an actual plane wreckage from Arizona, cut it up, transported it, and then reassembled it in the street, complete with smoke, lights, and piles of twisted metal. The staging was so convincing that not only were citizens fooled, but local newspapers ran front-page headlines detailing the national tragedy, plunging the area into a temporary manufactured state of panic. It was a bizarre Hollywood moment that blurred the line between cinematic illusion and real-life chaos. Number 7. Kurt Russell refused a detail that could have ruined the serpent's cool. In John Carpenter's initial screenplay draft, the final moment of the serpent's mission included a deliberate gesture of insolence. After successfully completing his deadly assignment, the anti-hero would nonchalantly flick his cigarette butt directly into the president's face as the ultimate sign of contempt. While intended as a rebellious punchline, Kurt Russell strongly objected upon reading it. He argued that the crude, cheap move would instantly transform the serpent from a mysterious, defiant icon into a cheap cowboy, destroying the character's carefully crafted air of supreme coolness. Russell insisted that the serpent's silent, piercing gaze and slow, controlled demeanor were enough to convey his defiance. Carpenter ultimately agreed, removing the detail and preserving the serpent's ultimate cool factor. A character both mysterious and rebellious, yet never overtly vulgar. Number 8. The lead role was nearly cast with different action stars. In the early 1980s, Kurt Russell was still primarily known as a former, wholesome Disney child star, specializing in family-friendly fare. When John Carpenter proposed him for the role of the Serpent, a hardened, notorious, and dangerous criminal, the studio producers vehemently rejected the idea. They simply couldn't envision the Disney kid transforming into a dark, cold-hearted anti-hero icon. The studio favored safer choices, the rising martial arts star Chuck Norris or the rugged, intimidating face of Tommy Lee Jones. But Carpenter was resolute. He believed only Russell possessed the unique blend of arrogance and underlying depth needed for the Serpent. After intense debate, Carpenter prevailed. When the film was released, Russell became an instant star, and the Serpent became one of cinema's greatest anti-heroes, proving that an impossible casting choice can forge a legend. Number 9. Despite the title, very little was shot in New York. Audiences in 1981 expected to see a ravaged New York, but the overwhelming majority of the film was shot in St. Louis, Missouri, and Los Angeles, California. A devastating fire had previously swept through parts of St. Louis, leaving behind large stretches of genuinely scorched, derelict neighborhoods, an ideal ready-made backdrop for a desolate city that required minimal set dressing. Only one single shot, a brief camera pan past the Statue of Liberty, was actually filmed in New York City. The rest, from the gloomy avenues to the perilous bridge sequences, were meticulous stagecraft and creative location scouting. A film titled New York Prison Break that barely set foot in the city itself was a massive logistical paradox that highlighted Carpenter's daring and ingenuity in stretching a limited budget. Number 10. The chilling opening narration came from a famous scream queen. From the film's first seconds, a cold, dry female voice cuts through the silence, describing the ceiling of New York and its transformation into a giant maximum security prison. The voice evokes a shiver, a tone as final as a death sentence. Few viewers realize that the disembodied voice belongs to none other than Jamie Lee Curtis, the star of Halloween and the era's quintessential scream queen. Carpenter invited Curtis to record the voiceover as a silent nod to their previous collaboration. Though she doesn't appear on screen, her voice effectively opens the door, guiding the audience into the serpent's dark, deadly world. Number 11. A major bank heist sequence was completely cut. New York Prison Break was initially planned to open not with the serpent being escorted to prison, but with a chaotic, action-packed bank robbery in a busy city. The sequence was elaborately staged, showing the serpent and his crew blasting their way in, triggering alarms and failing their subway escape. It was meant to immediately establish him as a daring, reckless criminal. However, during early test screenings, audiences found the elaborate, drawn-out scene to be cumbersome, slowing the film's pace and, ironically, making the serpent's character less mysterious. Carpenter made the tough but crucial decision to delete the entire segment. Thanks to this cut, the serpent's first appearance is as a shadowy figure, a notorious name whose dangerous past remains entirely ambiguous. A deliberate move that instantly cemented his legendary anti-hero status. Number 12. The iconic poster image only existed on paper. The promotional poster for New York Prison Break became one of the most iconic cinematic images of the 1980s. The enormous head of the Statue of Liberty lying shattered in a Manhattan street, surrounded by the serpent and a desperate crowd. It instantly conveyed a sense of utter devastation and post-apocalyptic ruin. Upon entering the cinema, however, audiences were often surprised. No scene in the entire film actually features this image. It was a brilliant, highly effective marketing trick that sold the film's concept. Though some were disappointed, the visual deeply ingrained itself in public memory. It wasn't until nearly 3 decades later that the film Cloverfield, 2008, paid an explicit homage, showing the statue's head rolling through the streets as if finally fulfilling the visual promise made by the New York Prison Break poster years earlier. Number 13. The helicopters were real military craft. When military-style helicopters appear on screen, their rumbling sound and dark, menacing shadows are genuinely visceral. Many viewers assumed these were merely models or sound effects. In truth, those were real aircraft belonging to the National Guard, mobilized and used in service of the film crew. Even more surprising, this filming experience sparked a lifelong obsession for John Carpenter. He developed a deep passion for aviation, eventually taking lessons and becoming a licensed helicopter pilot himself. A seemingly small detail during the production process ended up fundamentally changing the legendary director's entire life, transforming an on-screen fascination into a real-world, enduring passion. Number 14. The crew lived on a permanent night schedule. The suffocating and gloomy atmosphere of New York Prison Break wasn't just movie magic. It was the result of a grueling production reality. The entire crew was forced to live and work exclusively in darkness for months. In St. Louis, the daily shooting schedule began at 6 p.m. as the city's lights came on and wrapped at 6 a.m. the next morning. Every scene was filmed in the thick darkness, enhanced with artificial smoke and flickering lights to authentically recreate the deadly prison Manhattan. As dawn broke, the entire crew retreated, and city workers immediately moved in to clear away fake plane wreckage, charred debris, and props, restoring the streets to normal life before the sun fully rose. The cycle repeated every night, a dual, exhausting rhythm of real and illusory life that made the crew feel trapped within the very dystopian nightmare they were creating. Number 15. the Soul King played a villain. Isaac Hayes, the legendary king of soul music, took on the role of the primary antagonist, the Duke. Hayes didn't want to simply portray a violent gangster. He sought to add an extra layer of uneasy personality. In discussions, he proposed adding a small, nervous tick to the Duke whenever the villain interacted with the Serpent. Specifically, Hayes decided that the Duke's eyes would twitch slightly, a barely noticeable sign of underlying instability. To Hayes, even this tiny detail was enough to make the Duke feel more dangerous and unpredictable to the audience. While this subtle tick was an important acting intention, it was often not clearly visible in the final cut. Nevertheless, the anecdote highlights Hayes' seriousness in crafting a complex, chilling villain for the screen. Number 16. A Western legend filmed while in excruciating pain. Lee Van Cleef, a name synonymous with spaghetti Western masterpieces like The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, was cast as Police Commissioner Bob Hawke, the stern authority figure constantly battling the Serpent's defiance. However, when he arrived on set, Van Cleef was in poor health. He had recently undergone knee surgery, which made moving difficult and standing for long periods an ordeal. Given that the entire long shooting schedule took place at night over many continuous weeks, every scene where Van Cleef had to stand authoritatively, walk with purpose, or deliver snarling orders was a physical torture. Yet, on camera, the audience saw only a cold, imposing, and magisterial commander. The veteran actor's silent endurance of pain behind the stern eyes transformed Hawke into a perfect, weighty foil for the Serpent. Number 17. The son of a real U.S. president appeared in the crash scene. When the film premiered, audiences briefly glimpsed a familiar yet unexpected face amidst the chaos of the plane crash sequence. Stephen Ford, the son of President Gerald Ford, the 38th President of the United States, appeared as a minor character, a Secret Service agent aboard Air Force One just before it shot down. The sheer irony was noted by the crew. In a fictional film about the president being violently taken hostage by terrorists, the real-life son of a former president was present in that very scene. It was an unintentional, playful jab at fate, a moment where Hollywood and American politics intersected in a seemingly harmless frame, adding a layer of wry sarcasm to the behind-the-scenes stories. Number 18. The script was rejected for being too dark for years. John Carpenter originally wrote the screenplay for New York Prison Break back in 1974, years before his breakthrough success with Halloween. When he shopped the script around to major studios, most flatly rejected it. The common critique was that the story was too dark, too violent, and unsuitable for audiences of the time. The concept of a future America where its greatest city was transformed into a giant, crime-ridden prison was deemed a vision too chilling and despairing for a film industry that still favored more righteous, optimistic heroes. It wasn't until the major successes of Halloween and The Fog that Carpenter gained enough credibility to pull the old script off the shelf. Avco Embassy finally agreed to fund the project, paving the way for one of cinematic history's finest dystopian works. New York Prison Break proved that ideas once considered too unsettling can often become the key to creating cultural legends. Number 19. The Woman. The Serpent Meets was Kurt Russell's real-life wife. During the Serpent's chaotic journey, he unexpectedly encounters a woman in a small cafe, a fleeting yet memorable character. Few knew that this woman was Susan Hubley, who was Kurt Russell's wife in real life at the time. This was also reportedly her first role after giving birth to their son. This blending of the screen and real life created a strange emotional texture. The Serpent, the cold, isolated outlaw, having a moment of brief contact with his actual life partner. While audiences were unaware, that quiet cafe scene likely carried a distinct, private layer of emotion for Russell, mixing his work with his family life. Number 20. The immortal character was inspired by a real-life gangster. The name The Serpent, or Snake Plissken, sounds like something pulled straight from a comic book or science fiction novel, but John Carpenter drew inspiration from a far more grounded source. In high school, he once encountered a local gangster who went by the nickname Snake because he had a large snake tattoo prominently displayed on his arm. That man reportedly exuded a fierce, reckless, and intensely defiant demeanor, a personality strong enough to stay with Carpenter for years. When writing his dystopian action script, he adopted that powerful nickname for his main character, then completed the iconic look with the cold armor and the signature eye patch. From a real-life defiant individual, the Serpent Plissken was born, transforming into a legendary, immortal anti-hero on screen, concluding the series of secrets that make New York Prison Break not just a film, but a legend intertwined with countless fascinating anecdotes. New York Prison Break stands as a powerful testament to John Carpenter's audacity, creativity, and resourceful low-budget filmmaking. The movie delivers a dystopian world that is both suffocating and utterly captivating, holding the audience firmly from start to finish. The Serpent Plissken remains an immortal icon, deeply etched into the history of action and sci-fi cinema. More than 4 decades later, the work retains the gritty allure and cultural value of a true masterpiece.